All right, man, peace. So now recently here in New York City, there was a very tragic story concerning a physician who happened to be a so-called black man named Dr. Harry Ballou. He decided that he was going to go back to his former place of employment at Bronx Lebanon Hospital and exact revenge on his colleagues for what he deemed to be an unjust termination. So let's watch and see how CBS News covers this story.
Tonight, Bronx Lebanon hospital workers are remembering a 32-year-old doctor shot and killed in the hospital rampage on Friday. CBS 2's Rena Roy is live outside Bronx Lebanon Hospital in the Mount Eden section. Rena?
And Jessica, co-workers of Dr. Tam are praying and sending condolences to the family tonight as they show up to work for the first time following that horrific attack.
It was very unfortunate that, this tragedy happened to her.
Because instead of walking through these doors today like she's done for the past year, 32-year-old Tracy Sinyi Tam is dead, shot and killed exactly a year after graduating from residency.
She cared about her patients, she cared about her job.
People come to work not knowing it's going to be their last day or nothing.
Friends?
Yeah, well, that's very, very true. You never know when your last day is going to be. And that's why you have to, enjoy every day. But let me say this, anything can happen. You never know who you're working with. You never know what their mentality is. And that's why it's very, very important to respect everyone. Let me say this, especially as a so-called black man. These workplace environments, and I say this a lot to a lot of so-called black men. You have to do what you have to do to survive. It's essential that you have a form of income. But a lot of these workplace environments are filled with animosity towards the so-called black man. And a lot of times, if your mind is not properly prepared for what you have to deal with and what the dynamics are going to be in that workplace, people can get really disillusioned with the so-called American dream of success in corporate America. And a hospital is a corporation. All right. Don't get it twisted. Their job is to make money just like every other corporation. That's why one of the biggest talking points in America right now is the healthcare industry. All right. And people having what they call affordable healthcare. Why is that? Because health or hospitals are a business. All right. But you know what? Let's let them continue on with this story. I'll chime in here and there.
Tell us Tam became a doctor to support her mother and sister. That all came to an end yesterday when authorities say Dr. Henry Ballou returned to his old workplace wearing a white lab coat with an AM-15 rifle hidden inside. Hospital officials say the 6 other people he shot are recovering tonight in the hospital. Meanwhile, those who are inside are still counting their blessings that they made it out okay.
You have to wonder. What will push a man to that edge? You know what I'm saying? To that level where he said, you know what? And mind you, it wasn't like he got let go from his employment last week. He got let go 2 years ago. All right. It was 2015. Well, actually, he quote unquote resigned, but it was one of those resignations where basically you can either resign or get fired. So, his life probably deteriorated to such a level in the last 2 years that he said, you know what? I'm going to make people feel all the pain that I feel right now. I'm going to go back there and I'm going to make everybody pay. And brothers, let me say this. Don't put your job on a pedestal. All right. A lot of people, they get these jobs and a lot of times the so-called black man gets that from the female element that he's around. A lot of times so-called black men are subjected to environments where their value is totally based on their income or the job that they have, and they start to worship their job. And then they fall into the beehive mentality that you have in most of these corporations, where you basically go to work every day and you have to try to fit in with these people and gossip with these people. And basically, as I've stated before, in this society, the black male is always going to be at the bottom for the most part, considered at the bottom. According to reports that I've read about this man, Henry Ballou, he was ostracized and castigated while on his job. They alleged that he had a bad temper. And according to him, he would receive bad reviews because they said that he always would stay to himself. What does that really mean? What that really means is, so-called black man, you were not here trying to entertain us, and you were not here to try to make us feel comfortable with you being around us, because by nature, for the most part, people are not comfortable being around so-called black men. They're naturally intimidated. Unfortunately for him, he put his job on a pedestal, and that led to the anger and the rage and the frustration that he exhibited a few days ago. And it's very unfortunate. And this is why I say, and why I've always told brothers, you know, having a job is a good thing. Whatever you have to do to survive, as long as you're not hurting anyone else. But you should always be trying to work towards perfecting your own talents, your own skills, and trying to start your own business. Because corporate America is not for the black man. All right? It's not. It's not for you. And this is not to try to make brothers feel like they should leave their job. No, you do what you need to do to provide for yourself, for your family. But corporate America is not for the so-called black man. But once again, brothers, you do whatever you feel is right. But I know for a fact, I know from experience, I know from observation, I know from innumerable conversations that I've had with other so-called black men, what they tolerate, what they have to deal with in those environments. And I know that a lot of brothers get pushed to the edge in these environments because they want you to be a boy. They want you to be a good boy. And if you're not a good boy, they're going to try to bring confusion into your life. According to the testimony of the now deceased Henry Bello, he said that they would send emails about him. One doctor was sending out emails trying to encourage everyone to complain about him. Like I already stated, they were alleging that he kept to himself too much or that he was belligerent, and he very well may have been belligerent. All right. I've worked in the healthcare industry before, and a lot of doctors are arrogant. If you don't put them in their place, they will try to test you. In life, you do have to set boundaries and parameters to let people understand that no, you're not going to overstep those boundaries or something will happen. And, you know, when I see situations like this, what this tells me a lot of times is that he didn't nip situations in the bud early. Because what happens is that when you don't nip shit in the bud early, then you have to overcompensate late. You know, instead of telling somebody verbally to not fuck with you or to stay in their place or putting somebody in their place verbally, you take it and you take it and you take it and you take it, and then it bubbles over like a volcano and you end up doing something like what he did here, going on a kamikaze mission. All right. So the most important thing, again, is, you know, don't put your job on a pedestal. I see so many people go to their job and they try to act like their job is a church or like the people there are their friends. All right. In most corporate environments, particularly in workplace environments with a large amount of people, it's nothing but confusion there. It's nothing but people who are looking to step over each other to try to either enhance their profile or get a promotion or put on an act and a show. Oftentimes the workplace is an environment where people can exhibit a persona that they cannot exhibit in their personal life, right? Many times you'll see females come into the workplace and try to give people a hard time because they can't do it in their personal life because, you know, in their personal life, they can get left. In the workplace, people have to tolerate them and their nonsense. All these things are different dynamics, which is why, once again, I always tell the so-called black man that, you know, you work your job, you do what you need to do, but, you know, look for the talents that you have and try to perfect them and hopefully try to monetize them and get away from that environment, because that is the workplace environment, it can be a very corrosive environment, and it's really not the best place for the so-called black man to be. All right.
After barricading doors, running out in bed sheets, and texting loved ones as shots rang out. One woman messaging her mother, quote, "Someone is shooting on this floor. In case I don't make it out, I love you."
And he was holding a gun, just like this. And he went into one of the rooms, which I found out later to be the doctor's station, and pop.
Investigators say Dr. Bello also lit 2 fires, one at the nurse's station and another in attempts to kill himself.
I mean, look, I don't know what was going on inside of that man's mind. I'm not gonna go the MK angle. I'm just gonna say that maybe he was enraged. But who knows? Either way, no matter what the reasoning behind what he did, I think that I always say it's very important for brothers to understand that the dynamics of corporate America are not set up to welcome the so-called black man. All right? They're just not. And he obviously was somebody who literally bet his life on being successful in that environment. And when that didn't happen, he felt like he had no other recourse. All right? That's just looking at it from a surface level. No, according to some of the background I've read on him, he had supposedly he tried to sexually assault a woman in the street. According to the testimony of the woman, this is something that occurred back in 2004. Supposedly he tried to grab the woman on the street and penetrate her through her panties. I don't know how. I don't understand what the logistics of that is. Him trying to penetrate somebody through their panties. That's according to her story. I don't know if he had a lot of mental issues. According to the building that he previously lived in, his neighbor said that he was the nicest guy. So you never know. The media can create whatever personality composite they want to once somebody is gone. Supposedly he killed himself, shot himself. Who knows? Maybe he was shot by the cops. Who knows? But either way, the main crux of this video is mostly towards the so-called black man to just understand that don't put these jobs on a pedestal. All right? We have to have the mindset of pilgrims. A pilgrim has to be ready to up and move whenever it happens. Whether you decide to leave your job or whether you get let go, do not put your job on a pedestal. They view you as being expendable. All right? The so-called black man is expendable in these workplace environments. That's how they view you, period.
Sources telling us he was on the hunt for one specific doctor who wasn't there at the time, instead firing at another, yelling out, "Why didn't you help me out when I was getting in trouble?" He then shot and killed himself.
Now, he said, "Why would you help me out when I was getting in trouble?" In other words, he was looking for sympathy from his colleagues. The so-called black man should never look for sympathy from their colleagues. And like I said, whenever I see statements like that, where he stated that he was being reprimanded for allegedly being to himself too much, all that translates as is, black man, you are not making us feel comfortable in your presence. The so-called Caucasian man or so-called Asian man, East Indian, Arab, all the men of the other nations are allowed to be to themselves, but the so-called black man has to be on entertainment mode 24/7. Right? You have to be willing to entertain everyone 24/7. This goes back to what I've said about culture. And a lot of so-called pro-black dudes, they get mad at me when I say this. When you're the recipient of a high level of respect, when you have a culture, people just let you do your thing. All right? In the workplace, when you have the Arab man there, Malik Abdul Habib, whatever his name is and whatever his job is, people leave him alone. They don't say, "Oh, well, he doesn't talk much." But when it comes to the so-called black man, Tyrone, Shaheem, whatever it is, you better make sure that you smile. You better make sure that you make people feel comfortable. These are all spiritual dynamics. And this is why this is why I say over and over and over again, a lot of so-called black men are confused as to why these phenomenon exist. This is all spiritual. All right. When you're expected to entertain or be gregarious all the time, that's a sign of a servant. All right. You're viewed as a servant, not as someone who should necessarily be empowered. So this is why they expect the so-called black man to jump through all of these additional hoops to get the accolades in corporate America that the so-called black man wants in order to be considered equal. All right. They're going to make you earn it. And this man here, he was broken by this setup. He was broken by it because he had certain expectations that he understood were no longer going to be fulfilled. His career was over. All right. A so-called black man who was basically terminated from his job. He knew he would never get another one. because the way this system is set up, he would have had to have gotten references from Bronx, Lebanon in order to get employed somewhere else. And it wasn't going to happen for him. And he understood that. And because he put this society on a pedestal and his career on a pedestal, he worshiped it. All this was just so that he could run around and talk about how he's a doctor. That's all it was about. All right. And it broke him. All right. And this is I'm just going by surface level understanding or surface level appraisal of the situation. All right. So I say again, brothers, please do not put your job on a pedestal. As a matter of fact, don't put anything on a pedestal. Don't put anything that's temporary on a pedestal, because that's just a setup for disaster. That's a setup for your own demise. All right. That's why you see these stories. Oh, man goes home, kills wife, kids, dog, kills his damn self. Why is that? Because he put all those things on a pedestal. Things could change in the blink of an eye, brothers. All right. That woman, oh man, you know, that's my lady. We've been through thick and thin. You know, that's my lady. That's my boo. Next thing you know, your boo is you find out your boo is getting banged out by somebody at her job. What you going to go to the job, kill her, kill the guy, kill everybody in the office? You never know, brothers. You never know what can change in a moment in time. All right. Everything here is transitory. Only thing that's permanent is the Most High. Period. All right. So do not put your job on a pedestal. Do not put your woman on a pedestal. That's why I stay on these idiots that talk about this black woman is God nonsense. Any woman who's worth her salt will tell you, no, I'm not God. You know what type of pressure, you know what type of an onus you'd be putting on yourself to call yourself God. To me, that's a cop-out when a dude says that the black woman is God. That's him saying, I don't know how to figure out how to get out of this situation that our people are in, so I'm just going to put it all on the woman. I'm just going to call her God. For some people, their job is God. For this brother right here, his job was his God. All right? That's why the Most High, states, to put no gods, no idols before him.
The Daily News says he sent them a letter just 2 hours before the rampage saying in part, quote, this hospital terminated my road to a licensure to practice medicine.
You see, like I said, he knew that he would never work again in that field. Never again. All right, not in that field. And accordingly, he was living at or supposedly he was living at a homeless shelter. All right, so his life was starting to spiral down. Why is that? Like I stated, he wanted to have the fanfare of stating that I'm a physician. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with having high goals for yourself, high expectations. Those are things that galvanize you, that motivate you to succeed. There's nothing wrong with that. But when you have those goals just so that you can brag and those things collapse under you, you lose all your stability, you lose your composure, and you end up, if you're mentally fragile or possibly mentally ill, you end up doing things like this man did or is alleged to have done.
And, quote, it remains to be seen if my life is meaningless or disposable.
You see that he said that let me rewind this back.
Licensure to practice medicine. And, quote, it remains to be seen if my life is meaningless or disposable.
So now, this is what I mean when I said this is the problem when you have these earthly things or these worldly things and you put them on a pedestal. His whole life was defined by his job, and I see that all the time. People's life is defined by their job. And that's a very, very, very tenuous thing to predicate your life on. All right? So once again, brothers, don't do it, please. All right, whatever gifts that you have, develop them and, try to make a career out of it. Try to monetize it, because these jobs, they're tenuous at best. You don't want your life to be defined by what you do or by who you're with, because those things can change. All right. And when they change, I've seen people have breakdowns over it. Not a good thing.
Disposable.
When you say he said he was going to do this,
2 years ago when they fired him.
The hospital has not confirmed that prior threat, but the doctor who was the intended target told investigators Dr. Bello was always belligerent and would get into verbal arguments with nurses and staffers.
Now, that's according to them. Doctors do have a penchant for being arrogant or overbearing. But once again, when you inject the fact that this is a so-called black man, you never know what the truth can be. In hindsight, everybody's going to have bad things to say about him, particularly due to what he did. But you never know what the truth is in regards to his conduct with his colleagues. It could just be that he was bitter or resentful at the fact of how he was treated just because he was introverted. Right? Sometimes highly intelligent people, particularly highly intelligent black men, so-called black men, tend to be introverted because they're used to or accustomed to people not understanding their thoughts, not being receptive to their thoughts, and they just keep shit to themselves. A lot of times that makes you the enemy of the state because, once again, they want you to entertain them. They want you to be a minstrel at these jobs. And when certain men don't conform to that paradigm, they get ostracized, they get alienated, and they get run off and run out. And please do not underestimate the aspect of now in the medical field, you have a high influx of women. And when you have that high influx of women becoming physicians, they certainly do not want to see a black male doctor on their level or possibly above them. That also is a problem. Now, he was alleged to have been a participant in some sexual harassment. Who knows how true that is, but he does have a history of it. So it does bear that there may be some veracity to those claims. But either way, this story, man, it's just very, very bad story.
In February of 2015, he resigned in lieu of getting fired. Police say Bello had been arrested 4 times in the past, once for sex abuse. We're live outside Bronx Lebanon Hospital. Rena Roy, CBS 2 News.
Now, supposedly that sexual abuse case, that was officially stricken from the record. All right, brother. So I'm just going to end it by saying this. Once again, please, brothers, put spiritual things first. All right. It's on the spiritual things that's going to bear fruit. You have to put the spiritual things first and make sure that you keep everything in order, because many times, the Most High will allow these different situations to invade your life just to see how you're going to act. All right. Okay, now you have a nice job. Let me see how you're going to act. Now you have a beautiful woman. Let me see how you're going to act. These are things that are used to test you. And you cannot put these things on a pedestal. You cannot take them too seriously. That's why I always tell brothers, you love your woman. You don't fall in love with your woman. All right. That woman is supposed to follow your spirit. You're not supposed to follow her spirit. Right? You go to your job. If you just had a job to make money and it's not your passion, you go there, you get there on time, you clock in, you clock out, you do your job, you take your ass home. Cats fall in love with their job. They fall in love with these other things because they're living according to the exterior, and they just want to be able to brag to people. And not a good thing. All right, he was supposed to he was supposed to peep his environment and see, okay, this is how they rolling. I'm really not welcome here. Let me put in my time here and get my resume ready so I can move on to another hospital. All right. There's always another hospital. There's always another job. There's always another woman out there. All right. But anyway, peace.